This is Dr. Faria Bukhari from Pakistan Positive League. Today I'm going to talk about the decision and the announcement of Netanyahu to try to occupy the West Bank in Palestine and call it its own territory and technically remove the sovereignty of Palestine. I think we are dealing with a situation where what I have been campaigning about for the last few days, and in regards to the two-state solution, that whatever I've been telling you is coming true. It's what I told you a few weeks ago, if you remember, when the whole thing started, when the whole election campaign started, and they started to do airstrikes in Gaza. I told you that Netanyahu has rejected the two-state solution. And this has been already speculated by the leading think tanks all over the world, who are feeling that the peace mediation of the United Nations and even United States that's based upon the two-state solution recognition is now being totally rejected by the Israeli leaders, who do not want to acknowledge the existence of Palestine, who do not want to give them their sovereignty, who think they can get away with everything they want. And they have a very, very passionate religious fervor to pursue this. They are not doing it because they want the territory. It's not a territorial issue. It's a religion-based war. This is what I'm trying to make the world understand and comprehend, because some people are saying, oh, it's a territorial issue that was planted by the British in the Second World War. And then some people are like, oh, it's just the election campaign. It's just for the sake of winning the elections. And then some are saying, oh, Netanyahu just got indicted for corruption, so he's doing it because he wants to shake off the corruption charges. He wants to rejuvenate the faith that people have in him as a leader. Technically another election stunt. No, that's not true. And the same thing goes for Pakistan's neighboring state, India. People are saying, oh, it's an election stunt. It's not an election stunt. It's a religion-based fervor, passion for religion, for extremist radicalization that we saw in the leaders of Al-Qaeda, that we saw in the leaders of ISIS, who wanted to justify violence against a specific group of people in the name of religion, who got rejected by the 2 billion Muslims of the world. So they got so mad that they decided to go on a Muslim purge themselves, as a result of which they saw that Muslims became the biggest victims of this purge that ISIS and Al-Qaeda pursued. So over here, what we are seeing on the Israeli side is basically the same scenario that ISIS and Al-Qaeda did. They want total justification of violence against the Muslims sitting in Gaza and in West Bank, in Jerusalem, in the Palestine territories, because of religious fervor, because they think they can justify it in the name of Judaism, when the reality is this, that Judaism will never stand by such violence against a group of people. Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, was a prophet of peace. He would never want Muslims to be inflicted with so much oppression and atrocities. He actually, in Torah, there is mention of the coming of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as the final prophet, which the Jews have been ignoring and neglecting and refuting all these years. So there's a lot of extremism involved over here. There's a lot of mind programming, indoctrination that's involved over here. So for us Muslims as a nation all over the world to be able to communicate with dialogue and rational with such extremist factions, which is the Israeli leadership and the Indian leadership, we are not seeing any results. We have not seen any peacemaking processes happening either in India, with Pakistan, or with Israel and Palestine. And both these conflicts are being aggravated at the same time. And the worst thing that could happen right now is involvement of space weaponry. That is the worst thing that could happen right now, that now we are not dealing with just nuclear bombs. Now we are dealing with space wars. I'm not exaggerating. India just tested its anti-satellite missile in space, even though NASA condemned India. But still, they have done it, and they already have a lot of satellites which are capable of nuking any country on our globe, anytime, at the tip of a button. So we have allowed to create a very violent world around us. And we have been talking about religious coexistence. We have been talking about a culture of tolerance. What we saw in New Zealand is just the tip of the iceberg. I told you guys a long time ago that these so-called Christian Zionist extremist crusaders, the Knights of Templar, along with the Jesuits and we're talking about these Zionists that are doing it in the name of Judaism, and the reality is Judaism does not condone such violence. And then now we have the RSS-funded Akhand Bharat Hindutva founding priests in the Hindu temples. So we have this combination of extremists, legalized, constitutionalized, to spread hate against Muslims, to spread violence, to incite violence, to justify violence in the name of religion, when the religions do not condone to such violence. But we are not seeing the response that was demanded from the Muslims when ISIS and Al-Qaeda struck the world with terrorism. We are not seeing that response from the global leaders, from the leaders of Judaism, from the leaders, from the spiritual leaders of Christianity, that says, that openly, categorically labels Netanyahu as a terrorist, that categorically labels Modi as a terrorist, that disqualifies them from running for the office of 2 nuclear countries, because we are on the verge of an apocalyptic disaster. Do you have any idea what is going to transpire in the upcoming few weeks? Do you have any idea how violent these people are, how violently they think? And it is not an election stunt. Kindly stop believing and telling yourself that this is all going to go away as soon as the elections are done in Israel and in Delhi. No, this is not an election stunt. This is religious fervor. This is not Hinduism. This is not Judaism. This is not Christianity, because all the books that came for the Hindus, the Gita, for the Christians, the Bible, the Torah for the Jews, do not condone to so much violence, to so many atrocities in the name of religion. So don't tell me that Hinduism is telling these people to attack Kashmiris, to wage a holy war against Pakistanis for an Akhand Bharat Hindutva in the region south of Himalayas and north of Indian Ocean, because the Gita never asked the Hindus to do so. The Gita has asked the Hindus to learn to coexist with the other religions. So don't give me this BS that Modi is trying to spread in India, buying voters. His popularity is actually escalated. So what does that tell you? That he is zombinizing India. He's made India a zombie land of his narrative of Hinduism. So you have technically Talibization. I would say Talibans are way more civilized right now compared to what the Hindus are doing in the name of Hinduism to Kashmiris. But we are not seeing that reaction from anybody. We are not seeing anybody from the global leaders, from the humanitarian agencies that Modi, hey, stop it. We are not even seeing a strong movement within India from Indians themselves to disqualify Modi on the basis of his radicalized narrative that calls for a genocide of Kashmiris, that calls for a genocide of the entire country of Pakistan and Afghanistan and Burma and Nepal and Bhutan and Sri Lanka and even Indonesia in the name of a new, rejuvenated, resurrected Akhand Bharat Hindutva. So what do you expect? You expect a nuclear weapon to come from the space and hit any region, any of these regions, at the tip of an extremist-minded leader sitting in India anytime. Because you have allowed him to sit in office and dictate, I'm repeating, dictate his narrative to 1 billion people in India and be able to run for office again. I mean, think about it. If we allowed the leader of Al-Qaeda and ISIS to run for our offices in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, in Pakistan, in every Muslim country, how would you react? So why would you want us to shut up at your silence when you are silent in response to an Al-Qaeda, ISIS-like leader sitting in Israel, that's Netanyahu, who wants complete genocide of Palestinians, who does not even believe in the two-state solution anymore that you have been forcing down our throats all these years, telling us to shut up and pacify and not react or self-defend in response to all the aggression. And because you're silent at the narrative, the extremist narrative of Narendra Modi in Delhi, who is given complete immunity by the state, by the Supreme Court of India, to go ahead and radicalize 1 billion people on earth, to commit a genocide against Muslims. And when I say Muslims, that includes the Indian Muslims as well, that also includes the Indian Christians. I am not talking about just the Muslims here anymore. This narrative, RSS-funded narrative, is not just against the Muslims of India. It is also against every minority of India. It is a narrative against Christians. It is a narrative against the Dalits. It's a narrative against every religion other than Hinduism within India. They want complete conversion of everybody to Hinduism in India for any minority to be able to survive peacefully in coexistence. Their version of coexistence with a non-Hindu in India now is convert to Hinduism or get out. Same thing in Israel. Convert to Judaism, convert to Zionism, or get out. No concept of coexistence. What is this if not ISIS-like, Al-Qaeda-like extremist radicalization? The problem is we spoke up when Al-Qaeda acted in 9/11. We spoke up when ISIS was killing Christians. We condemned. All our religious Muslim scholars unanimously stood up together and condemned this as terrorism. They said this is not religion, this is not Islam. We condemn, we slam these acts of terrorism. And we didn't just stop over there. We didn't even, it's not just verbal condemnation we did. We went ahead. We allowed all the countries of NATO and United States to have control of our airspace, to be able to establish military bases in our countries, to fight these radicalized factions who were a threat to humanity. We gave the world our airspaces. We gave the world our ground space. We gave the world even access to our sensitive intelligence because we felt strongly against terrorism, because we felt that this is an attack on humanity and Islam stands up for humanity, not against humanity. The problem right now is nobody amongst the global leaders is acting reciprocally. When we have ISIS-like mentality, when we have Al-Qaeda-like mentality sitting in the highest government offices of Israel, sitting in the highest government offices of India, perpetrating justification of violence, justification of war crimes, justification of human rights violations, justification of white phosphorus bombs, justification of tactical nuclear bombs, justification of heinous atrocities against Palestinians, against Kashmiris, against Pakistanis, against Afghans, against everybody who dares to resist them. And let me tell you, they're not going to stop at this. Israelis, the Zionist Israelis, they want their temple. They want their third temple in place of Al-Aqsa. Their plans are to demolish Al-Aqsa and build the third temple as soon as possible in lieu of the emergence of the red heifer. So they are not going to stop at this only. They want complete obliteration of Palestine. They want complete obliteration of Muslims because they know Islam enough to know that Muslims everywhere in the world will not rest in peace, seeing them try to demolish their Al-Aqsa, seeing them try to obliterate Palestinians, seeing them try to commit a genocide against Palestine. They know we will be their strongest opponents anywhere in the world. Whether we are in US, whether we are in Canada, whether we are in Europe, whether we are in Africa, we are in Asia, we are going to speak up. If we have access to government offices, we are going to use our power to initiate a global, political, diplomatic movement against such atrocities, which we have already done under the OIC banner. Erdogan just spoke up. Prime Minister Imran Khan just spoke up. King Abdullah of Jordan spoke up. Even our Royal Highnesses from the House of Saud spoke up. Iran has been speaking up all the time, never stopped. Even Mahathir spoke up from Malaysia. Indonesia always has been against Israel. Trump just rejected all efforts of Iran for truce with US at all international forums because the Trump administration is pushing for a war against Iran. And the latest thing that happened is that Trump categorized the National Army, Defense Army of Iran as a terrorist army, which is ridiculous. Iran is a sovereign state. It has its army to safeguard the national interests of that country, like any other country of the world. And categorizing the national army of that country, no matter how much remorseful you feel against that country, is not acceptable. This is not how the US foreign policy works. This is the calling of an extremist-minded leader to have war, to have violence against a single country because of serious allegations of terrorism that bear no ground, that bear no evidence, that are absolutely coming out of personal vendetta, out of personal grievances, out of personal grudges. So US has to decide whose side it is on. The side of an extremist leader like Trump, who has no idea what he's talking about, or the side of global peace that will not happen by calling the Iranian National Guards as terrorists. If you want to impose these bloody crusades upon the Muslims, including the Kashmiris, the Pakistanis, the Palestinians, how do you expect us to keep on taking your lollipop and pacifier of two-state solution and a plebiscite when the reality is that you are allowing terrorist factions to function in Israel, terrorist factions to function in Delhi, working to obliterate the existence of Kashmiris, working to obliterate the existence of Pakistanis, Afghans, to obliterate the existence of every non-Hindu faction or religion within their anticipated conquered territories. And if you're not saying anything against the terrorist faction sitting in Israel wanting to convert the entire zone into a greater Israel, from the river of Nile to Euphrates. Why wouldn't you want us to react for self-defense of our people, our homes, our livelihoods, our children? We have listened to your dramas all these years. We believe in the sovereignty of Palestine. Palestine is an independent, sovereign country. It has every right to have its own army. It has every right to even bear nukes to deter the tactile nuclear bombs that Israel has been bombing Gaza with. Pakistan has every right to defend itself against the atrocities being committed in Kashmir by India, because Kashmiris are Pakistanis. They are very much citizens of Pakistan, as I am, or as any other people of Pakistan are. That is why they die in Kashmir, because they are waving the flags of Pakistan. They're shot at by the forces of India because they're waving the flags of Pakistan, because they are Pakistanis. This is an undeniable fact that you cannot refute no matter how hard you try. So for us to watch the Kashmiris succumb to atrocities being committed by Modi because he thinks like ISIS and thinks like Al-Qaeda, while the whole world decides to shut up and not respond or disqualify this extremist faction, it's not possible. We are going to react We want the Kashmiris to defend themselves. If you are not willing to take that responsibility at the diplomatic level, at the level of United Nations Security Council, at the level of every Security Council of the world, if you are not willing to provide them with a peace corps that prevents the aggression coming from Indian forces against the Kashmiris, then we have no choice but to give the Kashmiris the weapons that will be needed to deter this aggression. Same goes for Palestine. If you're not willing to convince your terrorists sitting in Israel, running for office, saying they want everybody to be obliterated in Palestine, if you're not going to contain this extremism, these terrorists, we are not going to take your pacifiers. We are not going to take your lollipops. We will self-defend the Palestinians. We will provide them with every weapon needed to deter Israeli aggression. Do you understand this? If you want them to continue with their bloody crusades, do not expect the Muslim nations, the 50 Muslim nations of the world, to remain subservient to your hypnotism. It has happened for the last 70 years. We are not going to spend another second being hypnotized with your dramas anymore. You need to respond. You need to generate a response equivalent to the response that the Muslims gave the world when ISIS and Al-Qaeda were dancing around, being a threat to every person known to mankind. We acted in the name of humanity against ISIS, against Al-Qaeda. We gave up the lives of our civilians. 9 million Muslims were killed in the last 2 decades in the war against terrorism because the Muslims refused to cooperate and to pledge allegiance to terrorist factions. They recognized ISIS and Al-Qaeda as terrorists, not just unanimously from the highest offices of our Islamic scholars, but also at an individual level. We stood up for humanity. We gave you our airspaces. We gave you our ground spaces. We gave you our intel. Everything. We cooperated with you. We got our own soldiers killed. Thousands and thousands of Pakistani soldiers were killed, martyred in the war against terrorism because Pakistan did not pledge allegiance to the acts of terrorism committed by Al-Qaeda and ISIS. But here you are. I'm talking to the UK Parliament. I'm talking to the European Union. I'm talking to even Justin Trudeau. I'm talking to even Jacinda Ardern. I'm talking to Antonio Guterres. I'm talking to Donald Trump. I'm talking to the Democratic Party. I'm talking to every politician in the US also. Here you are condoning to extremist, terrorist factions sitting in the highest offices of Israel, sitting in the highest offices of Delhi, condoning to the acts of terrorism against humanity. We're not talking about Muslims over here only. We're talking about Indian Christians. We're talking about every non-Hindu religion within India that they are attacking indiscriminately. But you are not even willing to slam them, let alone contain them. So do not expect us to believe in your pacifiers anymore. Same thing goes for Israel. I saw Lindsey Graham make a statement that the US Congress should come up with this bill that any nation that attacks Israel will be considered to have attacked United States. Seriously? Ilhan just got blasted off by the politicians, by the deep state of US, yet the entire population of America stood by Ilhan, stood by AOC, stood by Rashida, in spite of the fact that they spoke up against Israeli influence in the US politics. And here we have the puppet of the military-industrial complex, Lindsey Graham, wanting to recognize the safety of Israel equivalent to the safety of US, knowing what Israel has done to humanity, knowing what Israel even has done to Americans in the last few decades. Seriously, you want a bloody crusade to continue, to not expect the Muslims to stay silent and let these so-called extremist terrorists continue to purge our children, continue to kill our children, continue to blast off the children in Gaza, continue to kill our children in Kashmir, continue to do their proxy war against Pakistan. Pakistan has been in the de-escalating mode, but it's not going to happen like this for a long time. Iran has been playing it soft, trying to mediate a truce with US, but that's not going to happen for long. Even KSA is now on the same page as us. Even Saudi Arabia is on the same page and wants the issue of Palestine to be addressed in light of the two-state solution, the pre-67 borders that were decided by the United Nations Security Council a long time ago. They have also stood up for the Kashmiris, for the referendum promised by all of you Kashmiris. If this is not going to happen this month, by the end of April, expect us to start initiating and launching the self-defense program for Kashmiris and for Palestinians. They are a sovereign nation. Palestine is a sovereign nation. They have every right to bear their own army, national army, and they have every right to bear every arm possible to deter the aggression of Israel against them. This is a sovereign right given to them. This is per the international law. They have the right to self-defend themselves against aggression. You cannot take that right away from them, period. And these so-called lofty claims of Netanyahu, equivalent to what ISIS used to tell its people, equivalent to what Al-Qaeda used to tell its people, that we're going to conquer all of the world and convert it into a certain kind of people. That is BS. And that is the BS. That is your BS. And you should be the one who should be containing it. Otherwise, we will respond if you fail to respond. If you want this bloody crusade to be imposed upon us, do not expect us to shut up. Do not expect us to continue to give in the so-called de-escalation mode, because we will escalate. We will respond. Our nations will respond. We will do whatever it takes, even if we have to go to the space. Use our allies to respond to aggression, to end this bloody crusade that's been imposed upon our people. That's all I have to say.